to change state gun laws. Here's Channel 4's Joylyn Bukovac with what those parents are doing.
Well, Covenant School parents and staff members, they've met with lawmakers, encouraging them to pass stricter gun laws. And earlier this week, they actually launched a nonprofit. It's called the Covenant Families Action Fund. The parents are wanting to bring forth changes in hopes of sparing other families and children from experiencing a similar tragic situation.
The parents will be praying on the steps of the state capitol every day until that special session from 10:10 to 10:27 a.m. to honor those lost on the tragic day of that shooting. Right now in Berryhill, News 2 reporting that police are looking for a suspect who stole 6 guitars from a music studio. The man had them around his body for over a mile until he came up to a shopping cart and he put them in there. He then began to drink alcohol before stealing from a liquor store by breaking a window. Police say those guitars were recovered, no damage, and the instrument's combined value over $20,000. Police still don't know where this man is. And some sad news this morning. Legendary singer Tony Bennett has died at the age of 96. Here's more on his life from Jason Nathanson.
Tony Bennett sang the hits for decades. A World War II veteran, Bennett got his big break in 1949 when Bob Hope took him on tour. In 1962, he released what would become his signature song. I Left My Heart in San Francisco would win Bennett 2 of his 19 total Grammys. By the late 70s, Bennett was facing tough times. Failed marriages, a drug problem, no record label, IRS problems. But his son Danny took over as manager, engineering one of the greatest comebacks in musical history on everything from The Simpsons to MTV.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
9:07 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning. It's Chris Hand. Thank you for joining me. I'm so excited to be here. Last show of my first week. I hope I didn't disappoint you. And if I did, it's a work in progress. Hopefully I'll get better next week. So somebody that's not going to get better at their job, at least if we're being optimistic, he's probably not going to get better. You know, if we're being pessimistic, he's going to get much, much worse. Well, President Biden, he served up word salad for everybody last night, giving a speech yesterday. It was incoherent. It was incoherent at best. From Fox News, President Biden stumbled over his words Thursday during a speech at the Philly shipyard, where he took credit for low unemployment and decreasing inflation. Yes, you heard that right. President Biden is taking credit for low unemployment and decreasing inflation. What are your thoughts on that? 615-737-9986 is the number to call, and text in on the super text line, 615-737-9986. So the president approached the podium. He was kind of jazzed. He was running a little bit, and he was going to address a crowd of union supporters about the successes of Bidenomics. But he spoke so energetically, says Fox News, that he tripped over his words. And he really was bumbling, for sure. I know you're not shocked by that, but you would think he's going to give a speech. They would have given him the right cocktail of drugs to at least be coherent. Here's President Biden at the Philly shipyard.
Came to office determined to strengthen the middle class. I often say, and I mean it sincerely, you know, Wall Street, good folks down there, but they didn't build the middle class. They didn't build America. The middle class was built by the middle class, and the unions built the middle class.
Wait, what? The middle class built the middle class, and the unions built the middle class. So who built the middle class? Does that make any sense? I'm sorry, I'm a little confused.
The middle class was built by the middle class, and the unions built the middle class.
Okay, all right. Thank you. The middle class built the middle class, and the unions built the middle class. Cool. Sounds good, bud. I actually think he's a little drunk or something, the way he's slurring. But is that just me? Do you think he's a little drunk too? He could be. Maybe he just had a little bit too much ice cream.
Because I got tired of trickle-down economics. I've never been a big fan. If the wealthy do very well, I'm a capitalist. I like the wealthy to be able to let people be wealthy. But if the mere fact they do well doesn't mean everybody else does well.
Wait, what? What? He's a capitalist? That's strange. That's strange to me. Do capitalists always make other people pay for other people's debts? Is it a capitalist thing to cancel student loan debt and make taxpayers basically handle that burden? He's a capitalist, right? He's a capitalist. Okay. I'm a bit confused, but we knew this was going to be confusing going into it. So, all right.
I watched my dad growing up. There's not a whole lot of benefit trickle down on his kitchen table as a consequence of trickle down economics to what everyone from the Financial Times and Wall Street Journal has become my different philosophy. I don't think they started off trying to be complimentary, but they started calling it Bidenomics. And our plans work in Bidenomics. We're here.
Okay. Did you catch that? I actually transcribed the exact quote. To what everyone from the Financial Times and the Wall Street Journal has become my different philosophy. I don't think they started off trying to be complimentary, but they started calling Bidenomics lip smack. Our plan's working. Bidenomics, we're here.
Financial Times and Wall Street Journal has become my different philosophy. I don't think they started off trying to be complimentary, but they started calling it Bidenomics. And our plans work in Bidenomics. We're here.
All right, followed by confused clapping, as I'm sure you heard that. My goodness, could you imagine being in the audience and like really being into this guy's speech? Could you imagine going to a Biden speech at all and thinking, wow, today's going to be great? We're about to learn something from the resident in chief. Listening to the man is painful. It is absolutely painful at best. Jeez.
We have a plan that's turning things around pretty quickly. Bidenomics is just another way of saying restore the American dream.
Oh, Bidenomics, just another way of saying restore the American dream. Ah, yes, the good old American dream. It kind of reminds me of that old George Carlin quote, the American dream, you have to be asleep to believe it. I mean, since Biden took office, right? Prices are up 16.5%. Wages are down. We've lost 10 grand a year in buying power. Gas is up over $1 more, topping $5 in some parts of the country. When I was in Arizona, I was looking around and gas was like $5, $5.80 in some places. It was mind-blowing. I never wanted an electric car until I started rolling around in Arizona, and I was like, okay, well, if these gas prices ever come to Tennessee, I could understand getting an electric car. But in some parts of the country, just about every major city, actually, the country is being ripped apart by violence, crime, addiction. I mean, most of the major cities in the country, you could call them Narcanistan. Is that the idea of Biden restoring the American dream? Is that the idea? I mean, he sure seems to think so, if we're giving him credit for thinking at all.
At the same time, pay for low-wage workers has gone up at a faster pace than over 2 decades. Wages are growing faster than inflation.
That's just not true. Due to inflation, real wages have dropped nearly 4% since Biden took office. 4%. Wages are growing faster than inflation. This guy is on something.
And guess what else? I lowered the federal deficit by $1.7 trillion in the first 2 years.
Okay. Thanks. I was about to guess what else.
And guess what else? I lowered the federal deficit by $1.7 trillion in the first 2 years.
I have no idea what he's going on about. Guess what else? As the creepy old man leans into the microphone and starts whispering.
Today, we announced the first ever offshore wind sale in the Gulf of Mexico. We're going to the Gulf. Think I'm kidding? Ain't seen nothing yet.
What? We're going to the Gulf. I don't know. I don't know what he meant. They're going to put a wind sail in the Gulf. Okay, pal. I don't think he's kidding. I just think this administration is an absolute joke. However, I did agree with the last part of his speech, this part right here.
Ain't seen nothing yet.
No, it's true. We honestly haven't seen anything from this administration yet. Well, I mean, unless you're counting things like immigration crisis, ballooning debt, inflation, woke administrative state, weaponization of the DOJ, military disasters in Afghanistan. Yeah, we've seen a lot of that. So maybe we have seen something yet.
Ain't seen nothing yet.
I mean, we've seen a lot of failure from the Biden administration. 615-737-9986 is the number to call in and text. Chris texted in 1410. He said, Chris, he actually spoke some truth in there. He said he didn't think. Yep, that's fair. That's fair. 7679 said, BS. FJB. He's full of caca. This is not true. Fair enough, my friend. Fair enough. I mean, this man really must be suffering from dementia. He can't talk to save his life. We know he's not writing his own speeches. That's a given. And, judging by this, he can't even read them. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And his own administration, they're stuck out there having to defend him and his ineptitudes and lack of mental capacity. This is him from the other day. Do you remember this with the Israeli prime minister?
As I affirmed to Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday, America's commitment to Israel is firm.
Says the old man as he's falling asleep on the chair. So that's how he deals with foreign leaders. And John Kirby from his administration was on with Martha McCallum. And she asked him to defend that clip and the president's unsettling demeanor. Here's what he had to say.
John, this got a lot of attention. It got picked up in a lot of places. Why is it so hard to understand what the president is trying to say there?
I think he was very, very clear, Martha.
Yes, John Kirby. He was very, very clear. I mean, he's the most clear and mental sharp president ever. To me, that's the scariest part. Not the dementia setting in. That's scary, but I don't think that's the scariest part. The scariest part to me is because his entire administration has just been propping him up like it's Weekend at Bernie's. That's terrifying. They Weekend at Bernie's this man left and right all over the place every single day. Ay caramba. What do you think about Joe Biden's speech? Is he making sense to you? Call me, 615-737-9986, or text in 615-737-9986. Bonnie, you're on line 3. You have a comment on this administration and bumbling Joe Biden. What's going on, Bonnie? How are you?
Yes, good morning. I just want to challenge everybody out there that voted for Biden and they're sick at their stomach. Will they please call in and just say how they feel? Because when I hear his name, I just want to vomit.
You know that they're not going to admit their own failures. These are the same people that swore masks work, and they're not going to admit defeat now. They're just going to double down.
Well, I think they will eventually if you keep beating it down because you're doing a good job, and I don't like the old goat. He makes me sick.
Hey, man, I completely agree with you, Bonnie. Thank you so much for the call. I appreciate it. Super Texter 0397 just texted in. It's Weekend at Biden's, not Weekend at Bernie's. So true. So true. 6890 said, Bidenomics restoring the American dream. Wait, Bidenomics destroying the American dream. Fixed it for you. Oh, jeez. 615-737-9986 is the number to call in and text. Have we seen anything from the Biden administration?
Ain't seen nothing yet.
No, we haven't seen anything yet. We haven't seen anything yet. My name is Chris Hand. This is the Chris Hand Show. I want you to be a part of it at 615-737-9986. Whether you want to text in, call in, we'll get you on the air. And make sure you're following me off air on Twitter and Instagram at Chris Hand on Air. Thank you for being here. Thank you for putting up with that speech from Joe Biden. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I watched my dad growing up. There's not a whole lot of benefit trickle down on his kitchen table as a consequence of trickle down economics to what everyone from the Financial Times and Wall Street Journal has become my different philosophy. I don't think they started off trying to be complimentary, but they started calling them Bidenomics. And our plans work in Bidenomics. We're here.
Oh, don't get it confused, you guys. The plan is absolutely working. Of course, their plan isn't what they tell us it is. You know, I think the plan is to just ruin the middle class. And if that's the plan, well, Bidenomics is certainly working. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN, 926, 82 degrees. My name is Chris Hand. Thank you for being here. The number to call, 615-737-9986. John super texted in. He said, Chris, Biden has never been the sharpest tool in the drawer, but he is a tool. Fair enough. 0760 texted in and said, Joe Biden, bless his heart. Oh, bless his heart is true. 615-737-9986 is the number to call if you want to talk about it. Mark on line 3, you're on the air on the Chris Hand Show. What's going on, Mark?
How's it going, Chris? Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, man. Thanks for calling in. What's up?
I'm a youngin' out here in Nashville, and honestly, I don't got much to say, but anybody with 2 brain cells know that Biden's doing nothing right.
I mean, I think that was the one part of his speech that he was actually being honest about. We ain't seen nothing yet. I can't believe he did that. That way we could, isolate the clip. Like, he knows somebody like me. He's probably going to use that against him.
Ain't seen nothing yet.
We ain't seen nothing yet. 615-737-9986 is the number to call or text in. It's the super texter rolling in. Somebody said there may be lead pipes in the White House. 1711 texted in. Might explain why Biden and Harris are both lost in the sauce. Lead pipes in the White House. That is hilarious. I can't say I disagree with you.
Ain't seen nothing yet.
No, I mean, it would make sense. The way the man talks or his lack of ability to talk would certainly suggest that there could be lead pipes in the White House. I love the super texters. 615-737-9986. So Joe Biden's out there stumbling and bumbling in Philadelphia. He can't say anything. He can't do anything. And at the same time, Kamala Harris is in Florida, and you know what she's doing? Well, she's making her way to the stage, and she's just doing her cackling thing like she always does.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am so honored.
Oh, I am so honored. So Kamala Harris was visiting Florida. She was delivering remarks in response to the State Board of Education's approval of new standards for how Black history is going to be taught in schools. Now, this is how they're going to frame it. They're going to say that, the evil Republicans are so racist and, how dare they not teach Black history, right? And Kamala Harris said as much herself, going, full Hitler in this speech, the way she's screaming and yelling about this.
And while they do this, check it out. They push forward revisionist history. Just yesterday in the state of Florida, they decided middle school students will be taught that enslaved people benefited from slavery. They insult us in an attempt to gaslight us, and we will not stand for it.
Yeah, they're just gaslighting you, Kamala Harris. You should see the video of this lady. She is screaming and pointing. The veins are pulsing out of her forehead. She looks like she's losing her mind, which is crazy because usually it's Joe Biden that looks like he's losing his mind. But Kamala Harris did not want to be outdone yesterday. Now, as she says that that Florida, is going to do this revisionist history, I just want to point out, this is DeSantis from back in January talking about this exact topic, the new standards for how Black history will be taught in schools.
This course on Black history, what's one of the lessons about? Queer theory. Now, who would say that an important part of Black history is queer theory? That is somebody pushing an agenda on our kids. When you look to see they have stuff about intersectionality, abolishing prisons, that's a political agenda. And so that's the wrong side of the line for Florida standards. We believe in teaching kids facts and how to think, but we don't.
Teaching kids facts and how to think, not teaching them queer history. Is that all right? I think that makes a lot of sense. All right, we're going to the phones right now, 615-737-9986. Higgins is on line one. You have comments on the Biden speech, Higgins. What's going on?
Hey, yeah, man. I always have a comment about Biden. I mean, every minute of the day, anytime. So I guess this whole Bidenomics thing, I don't believe he is the president-in-chief. I really, truly believe that he is just a resident of the White House, and all the hot air that comes out of his mouth makes him the queef. So it would be the resident queef.
Okay, thanks for the call. 615-737-9986. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with more of your calls on Bidenomics next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Plus, there's that report out about the bribes that the Biden family took. Yes, Grassley releasing the memo. I got all the breakdown on that as well. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Thank you for being here. It's 9:38, 82 degrees out in this beautiful city of Nashville. So we were talking about Biden's speech touting the successes of Bidenomics and how the plan is working. And I got to say, it depends on if they're telling us the truth about the plan. If the plan is to gut the middle class, well, my friends, I do agree the plan is working. 615-737-9986. If you want to be a part of the conversation, I got a super text from 7793, and he said, how does Jill allow her husband to be used in the manner he is used? I say this all the time. How does she do that to her husband? She must not love him. That family probably has no love in there whatsoever, because if anybody truly cared for Joe the way you would care for your grandfather or your father, you would have had them at home hanging out with the grandkids a very long time ago. He would have been on Rehoboth Beach in Delaware, kicking his feet up and, having pina coladas, just relaxing and soaking in the sun for the rest of his days. He was 7793. Thank you for the comment. It's crazy to me, and I totally agree. Jill can't be a good lady because she would take better care of her husband. My wife would never let me go through that. At least I hope not. All right, going to the phone lines at 615-737-9986. Line 2, Walker, you're on the air on Super Talk 99.7. What's up, Walker?
Yeah, I can see why Trump was mad about Biden. I mean, his vice president was running for president, and she was the first one knocked out. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, you're talking about Kamala Harris?
Yeah.
I remember when she got knocked out. I remember the exact moment when Kamala Harris basically lost her chance at the presidency. She was in Detroit. She was in Detroit during those debates, and Tulsi Gabbard called her out for her marijuana conviction record. And the entire room of black mothers in Detroit just went, yeah, not our president. She's not for us.
Yeah, and I'm Irish Dutch. My wife says I'm blacker than she is. And that's crazy. But Biden, when he was running for president, he was in, I think, Minnesota. And he said, I'm running for your U.S. senator.
Yeah, I remember that.
Running for president.
Yep.
And there were several cities, I won't keep you up because I know you got other people to talk to, that he forgot what city he was in. I understand why Trump was so upset. And all the voting things were closed where nobody could watch them, count the votes. I mean, it was just a crazy, crazy thing. And I know you got other callers, and I love your show, by the way.
Oh, thanks so much. Thanks so much for that, man, and I appreciate you listening. I remember it when he was going around city to city campaigning. It was like a guy that was on tour for a band. He would say the wrong city and completely forget, or say the wrong position he was running for. And after a couple of those times, I think is when they pulled him back in the basement to keep him safe. Absolutely insane. 615-737-9986. A super texter texted in said, how does Jill allow her husband to be used in the manner he is? Well, I just got another text from 8548, and they said, Jill just loves the power. You're absolutely right, 8548. Absolutely right. Also, switching gears, I'm not sure if you heard, but Chuck Grassley releases the transcript of the $10 million bribery scandal. So yesterday, the Post-Millennial reports, Senator Chuck Grassley released an FBI informant file where a confidential human source allegedly explains the $10 million bribe that was paid to President Joe Biden and his son by Mykola Zlochevsky, the owner of the Ukrainian national gas company Burisma Holdings. According to the June 2020 file, the CHS alleges that Zlochevsky told him it cost $5 million to pay one Biden and $5 million to another Biden. He also alleges that Zlochevsky told him that Hunter, through his dad, would take care of issues surrounding Ukrainian Prosecutor General Viktor Shokin's investigation into the organization. We all remember that. Trump got impeached over asking about that. Now it turns out that the FBI was aware of this in June of 2020. Is that not amazing? And in case you forget what this was all about, well, allow me to reintroduce you to the now famous clip.
I'll give you one concrete example. I was, not but it just happened to be that was the assignment I got. I got all the good ones. So I got Ukraine. And I remember going over convincing our team, or others, to convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I'm not going to, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion.
And here it comes.
I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired.
He got fired. Of course he did. At the time, Burisma was looking to purchase a U.S.-based entity to operate and invest in it, and an investigation would make it difficult to find investors. So around that same time, Joe Biden made that public statement alleging that Shokin was corrupt and should be fired. Zlochevsky told the confidential human source that he had to keep Hunter Biden on the board so everything will be okay. Huh. So you're telling me that it wasn't because of Hunter's extensive knowledge of energy or the country of Ukraine? That's so weird. I don't think that's true. So he had to keep Hunter Biden on the board so everything will be okay, even though he thought Hunter Biden was stupid and Zlochevsky's dog was smarter. The CHS also said that when asked if Hunter or Joe Biden told him, Zlochevsky, that he should keep Hunter on, he replied, they both told him so. The confidential human source's opinion to Zlochevsky was that he should fire Hunter Biden and deal with the investigation so that the issue didn't become an international affair. Zlochevsky assured him it was too late to change his decision and not to worry, this thing will all go away. Wow. Well, here we are in 2023, and this thing has not gone away. I remember in high school, they used to say, if a rumor keeps coming around, it's probably not a rumor. It's probably because it's true. Well, in a later conversation, Zlochevsky said that he has many text messages and recordings that would show that he was somehow coerced into paying the Bidens to ensure Ukraine Prosecutor General Viktor Shokin was fired.
Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired.
Yep. And that confidential human source specified that he had claimed to have 17 recordings with the Bidens, where Joe was in 2 and the other 15 were just Hunter. So the man has the receipts.
Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired.
The file notes that the confidential human source mentioned Zlochevsky might have difficulty explaining suspicious wire transfers that may evidence any illicit payments to the Bidens. Zlochevsky responded to the CHS that he did not send any funds directly to the big guy, which the confidential human source understood was a reference to Joe Biden. Zlochevsky then told him that it would take 10 years to find the records. The New York Post notes that the big guy reference was allegedly how President Biden was referred to in a deal with a Chinese energy company when discussing his 10% cut. However, the Burisma file was created before that information was even public. The release of the documentation confirms a statement by House Oversight Committee member Marjorie Taylor Greene earlier this month about the $10 million bribe, and Hunter Biden, need I remind you, was paid $83,000 a month to sit on the Burisma board, according to reports. Again, without any knowledge of Ukraine or any knowledge of energy. So now Joe Biden is accused of threatening to pull a $1 billion U.S. loan guarantee when he was vice president to get that prosecutor fired. Shokin was eventually fired, and the U.S. did issue the money.
Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired.
He got fired. 615-737-9986 is the number to call or text if you want to be a part of the conversation. I love when you jump in. So that was the report on all of this and the leaked, the memo that was released by Chuck Grassley. But I will say the left is going to be pushing a completely different narrative, my friends, as you should be aware and assume they would do. So Business Insider is telling a different story. This is how Business Insider, a leftist publication, is framing this exact same story. The FBI is furious. Chuck Grassley released an internal document that makes unverified claims about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden accepting bribes. Unverified. You don't say.
Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired.
He got fired. The FBI on Thursday blasted the two top Republican lawmakers for supporting the release of an internal investigative document that contains unverified allegations that President Joe Biden and his son Hunter accepted bribes from a Ukrainian gas company, claims the White House called dishonest, and which even some Republicans have cast doubts on. The FBI goes on to say the safeguards the FBI has placed on the production of this information are necessary to protect the safety of confidential sources and the integrity of sensitive investigations. That's what the Bureau said in a statement to the Business Insider. Today's release of the 1023 form, at a minimum, unnecessarily risks the safety of a confidential source. So that's where we are, my friends. The memo was released by Chuck Grassley. It exposes quite a bit of information, but the left is under narrative control, and the FBI is saying it was all unverified. Are we shocked about that? Are you shocked about that? That the FBI will come out and say it was unverified? That the FBI had the information in June of 2020? Ay caramba. I'm not shocked. Just like I wasn't shocked that the Bidens have these wire transfers coming in, that the info is coming out. Everything in the dark will be brought to the light. I truly do believe that. I will, however, keep holding my breath to see if we will get results from any of this. It's now 9:50 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, 82 degrees out. My name is Chris Hand. Thank you for being on air with me. You can always join me off air on Twitter and Instagram at Chris Hand on air. The radio station is Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity, like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose, and that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, call us for a free 15-minute phone call or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.
No authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch.
He got fired. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's Chris Hand, 9:57. We were talking about Joe Biden and the FBI and Chuck Grassley releasing the memo, which was a transcript of the $10 million bribery scandal. On Thursday, Senator Chuck Grassley released that informant file, and now we are in the narrative battle. 615-737-9986 is the number to call. Joel, you had a comment on the Bidens. Joel, you're on Super Talk 99.7. What's up, man?
Not really a comment per se on the Bidens, but just kind of a funny story. So me and my wife, we've been together for almost 20 years. She's always gone, to the left, and I've always gone to the right. Well, the last election, she voted for him. Whatever. I love her. It's politics aside, it doesn't matter. But my kids, 11 and 8, recently asked her, because they're becoming more aware, who did you vote for, Mom? And she looked at him. She's like, I don't want to talk about it.
I have a feeling a lot of Democrats feel that way these days. Thanks for the call, Joel. I appreciate it. 615-737-9986 is the number to call. All right, so on the way today, we're going to have Victor Marks joining us after 11 a.m. He has saved 45,000 women and children from sex trafficking. He has a personal relationship with Tim Ballard from the Sound of Freedom movie, and he's going to be talking to us about everything swirling around that from the media narrative and all of that. And as always, you can join me on the show, 615-737-9986, whether you want to call in or text. And I love the texts. John texted in. He said, Chris, Biden's activity is so dirty, illegal, and treasonous, and left liberals still deny and defend. You're absolutely right, John. He went on to say, such corruption, and they attack Trump. Hey, that's what they do. If the Dems don't do anything right, it's projection. Super Talk 99.7.
From ABC News, I'm Derek Dennis. Former President Trump will stand trial May 20th of next year on charges he mishandled classified documents. That's in a new court filing today that shows it'll happen at federal court in Fort Pierce, Florida. And any day now, Trump could be indicted after receiving a target letter over his role on January 6th.
We know that the target letter that we've reported on through our sources includes 3 statutes. Those are conspiracy to defraud the United States. There's a civil rights statute listed there, and then there's a witness tampering statute. But it's important to point out that these are very broad. We don't know what specifics, and essentially, even though we know that these are listed here, we don't know if they will be in any indictment. So we'll have to see.
ABC's Catherine Faulders. The State Department confirming 2 high-level officials, the U.S. ambassador to China and the Assistant Secretary for East Asia, had their email breached by Chinese hackers between May and mid-June, but no classified material was believed stolen. Legendary singer Tony Bennett has died.
Why haven't you seen it?
Known for his smooth voice, warm smile, and love songs, Bennett's career spanned some 70 years. He had Alzheimer's disease and is survived by his wife, 2 sons, 2 daughters, and 9 grandchildren. Tony Bennett was 96. 100 million Americans in southern and western states under triple-digit heat alerts. In South Pasadena, California, a hiker missing in the hot weather for a week. In South Florida, the water almost as warm as the air, bleaching coral reefs and raising the threat of hurricanes. And there's another threat.
The Saharan dust sweeping in across the Atlantic today and through the weekend. The sky, it already looks a little hazy this morning. Those with respiratory issues should keep an eye on it. The Saharan dust will limit storms, but will also lead to even hotter temperatures.
ABC's Victor Oquendo in Miami. Meantime, there's serious concern in North Carolina after a tornado destroyed a Pfizer plant in Rocky Mount. Pfizer says it's still assessing the scale of the damage. You're listening to ABC News.
Let's see.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning. I hope you're doing well. The number to call into the show, 615-737-9986. You can also text in. I love the super texters. I love crowdsourcing information and jokes. It's awesome. All right, so I don't know if you heard, but Mayor Eric Adams in New York City, he is begging and pleading for help. Mayor Eric, from Breitbart.com, Mayor Eric Adams' administration will begin warning illegal aliens at the United States-Mexico border to not travel and resettle in New York City, telling them that the cost of housing is high and that they are not guaranteed shelter or care. Oh, what happened, Mayor Eric Adams? I thought New York City was a sanctuary. I thought New York was a sanctuary state and New York City was a sanctuary city. Are you guys racist now or something? What's going on? Somebody needs to check on Mayor Eric Adams. I think he's having an issue.
We stated several months ago that we have reached full capacity. And that full capacity was verbalized, and now New York is just going to be visually actualized. We're going to see how much of our cup has basically runneth over. We have no more room in the city, and we need help.
You guys do need help, and it's not just because you're out of room. Did he just do the F off, we're full meme?
I think basically, yeah. I think he grabbed a little more than he could handle for sure.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Since the spring of last year, more than 90,000 border crossers and illegal aliens have arrived in sanctuary New York City. The majority, about 55,000 of those 90,000, are living off local taxpayers in city-run hotel rooms, shelters, and other facilities. So you're paying in New York City for more than half of the illegal aliens that have been invited there because of the sanctuary city policies of Mayor Eric Adams and the leadership that came before him. Now, Adams has said his office will begin issuing flyers to border crossers and illegal aliens, begging them not to travel to New York City. Yes, you heard me right. They're going to issue flyers, little information pamphlets, warning them about the high cost of living and housing prices and asking them to please consider another city to resettle. Are you kidding? I got my hands on one of these flyers. And it says just that. Updates to asylum seekers from the city of New York. Since April 22, more than 90,000 migrants have come to New York City. There is no guarantee we will be able to provide shelter and services to new arrivals. Housing in NYC is very expensive. The cost of food, transportation, and other necessities in NYC is the highest in the United States. Please consider another city as you make your decision about where to settle in the U.S. Are you kidding me? So you invite these people in, you put the burden on your taxpayers, and due to inflation and, the increased tax revenue you need, it's become far too expensive.
Maybe they can go to Portland. I've heard it's good this time of year.
Portland. Another Narcanistan.
Touchy subject.
Dude, Portland is a mess, but New York City is such a mess that they're saying, F off, we're full. This is the same mayor. This is the exact same mayor, mind you, that was filling hotels with illegal aliens. 615-737-9986, the super text line, and texted in, said, Chris, how in the world can they say don't come here with a straight face? I don't know, because they've been saying that they welcome them and that they're a vital part of the community for so long, but now they're full. No vacancy.
I mean, you could only cover up so much with clown makeup at this point.
Oh, my gosh. It's clown world. 8403 texted in and said, that flyer sounds like the KKK recruitment flyer from Columbia. Oh, geez. 9707 said, I think a bus to both his and New York governor's mansion is in order. I agree. Let's bus them right up to the governor's mansion and to his mansion. So this is the same mayor that was filling the hotels with illegal aliens. The Daily Mail reported on that back in May. That report said this place deserves to be shut down. Migrant hotel employee reveals free-for-all of drugs, sex, and violence inside New York City's The Row, since it was closed to tourists to make room for border crossers. So you're not allowing people in New York to make money. You're closing these hotels and filling them up with illegal aliens. The hotels are being destroyed, and you're paying for it. And now that it's no longer palatable and the public is pushing back, you're handing out flyers that say, sorry, we're full. Ann texted in at 615-737-9986 and said, I can tell you what they're full of up there. You're absolutely right. AJ texted in and said somebody needs to make 30 to 40,000 flyers telling illegal aliens to go to New York and that they will be taken care of. 1881 said they also kicked out U.S. military veterans out of those hotels to make room for migrants. You're absolutely right. At that hotel, an ex-employee exposed the appalling state of the rooms occupied by these migrants, which, again, when you say migrants, you're using the left's language. I don't believe in that. They're illegal aliens. But they described the establishment as chaotic, rampant drug use, sexual activity, violence, and believes that the hotel should be closed. The hotel's 1,300 rooms spanning 28 floors were allocated almost entirely to accommodate migrants, with the city paying a nightly rate of $500 for their stay. So,
wait, for each room or for in total?
For each room.
Okay, I was about to say 500 in total is nothing, but
do some napkin math. 1,300 rooms at $500 a night.
More than I'll ever see.
I mean, come on. Come on, guys. And they kicked out homeless veterans to fill up the rooms. It's insane. 0779 texted in and said, come on, vote Democrat, but do it somewhere else. Jeez. So they're wasting tax dollars on hotel rooms. Drugs and violence is everywhere. And we're supposed to be shocked and feel bad for New York City. And Mayor Eric Adams is pleading with them to go elsewhere.
We stated several months ago that we have reached full capacity.
They're full.
And that full capacity was verbalized, and now New York is just going to be visually actualized. We're going to see how much of our cup has basically runneth over. We have no more room in the city, and we need help.
Yeah, you do need help. So I love the super text line because I said 1,300 rooms at $500 a night, and now we're crowdsourcing math. 7159 texted in and said that's $650,000 a night since May. I can understand why you're pleading and begging for migrants and illegal aliens not to come. 0313 texted in and said, remember when New York City was the Big Apple and was a fun place to go? And now look at them. Rotten to the core. And we're supposed to feel bad. We're supposed to feel bad, you guys. Poor New York City. I mean, these are their policies that they voted for. Remember, they were the caring and compassionate people that hoisted up the sanctuary city, welcomed in these illegal aliens. And now what do you have? New York City's at capacity. And the thing that bugs me the most, he's not calling the Department of Homeland Security and asking for deportations. No. He's calling for the illegal aliens to be moved to your town or my town. And maybe even in the middle of the night like they did in Chattanooga. Sending them God knows where. And look, I want to be perfectly clear. I'm not anti-immigration. I am, however, anti-illegal immigration. I'm more than welcoming to people that come the right way, but I'm anti-welcoming in more tax burdens on the U.S. citizens. If you can pay your own way, you have skills, you're willing to assimilate, you file the proper pay work, more power to you. That's great. But, you know, some of the people that love this country the most have done just that. Come in the right way. But if you want me to support open borders when we have trillions in debt, homeless veterans being kicked out of hotels, and American citizens on the street that need help, I think that we should do that first. If Mayor Eric Adams wants to fix this problem, he needs to start by taking it up with one man, Alejandro Mayorkas. But, you know, he won't. because of the optics. Because like most politicians on the left and the right, what they fear is not you, the voter. What they fear is optics. It's always a game about optics. And that's why Alejandro Mayorkas will go and give a speech in front of a crowd that is more than happy to applaud him for the work that he's doing.
And I just want to say to you, Ali Mayorkas, that under the most difficult circumstances and the political dysfunction of Washington, you're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you.
Thank
you.
Oh, he's doing such a wonderful job, isn't he? So great. He's doing such a great job. Jeez. They're begging for them not to come. Absolutely begging on their hands and knees, pleading with them. They can't afford it. They can't afford it. 3393 texted in and said, as my grandfather said, you have made your bed, now lay in it. Amen. Republicans on the House Homeland Security Committee on Wednesday issued a scathing report accusing DHS Secretary Mayorkas of being intentionally derelict in his duty to the country as he's implemented this radical open borders agenda. Chairman Mark Green has launched an investigation into Mayorkas' dereliction of duty earlier this year amid a barrage of criticism of how the administration has handled the border crisis now into its third year. There were more than 1.7 million encounters in the fiscal year 21 and more than 2.4 million in 22. Numbers have been similarly high in 2023, and, I don't think it's going to get any better. In that interim report published on Wednesday evening, the report accuses the DHS Secretary Mayorkas of undoing effective policy, of implementing the open borders policy agenda, and of ignoring nearly a dozen laws passed by Congress. And I'll add to that, Mayorkas has consistently underfunded and demoralized Border Patrol at every turn since he took over. Remember when he accused the Border Patrol of whipping illegal aliens crossing the border? It was proven to be a lie, but he accused them of it anyway. So again, Eric Adams, if you want the illegal aliens out of New York City, because you can't take what you have asked for, the only person that you should be taking this up with is Mayorkas. But you know what? Keep printing out your flyers, my friend. I think that's definitely gonna do some help. The 2785 texted in, said dysfunction is the rule of the day for progressives. Without contrived chaos and dysfunction, their voters wouldn't need them as saviors. You're absolutely right, 2785. They create the problem to provide the solution. It's the Democrat way. It's the Democrat way. What are we supposed to do? I don't want to help New York City. I like what that other texter sent in. You made your bed, now lay in it.
We stated several months ago that we have reached full capacity. And that full capacity was verbalized, and now New York is just going to be visually actualized. We're going to see how much of our cup has basically runneth over.
It's runneth over.
We have no more room in the city, and we need help.
Yeah, you need a lot of help. You need a lot of help. 9707 texted in and said, oh, Mayor Eric Adams, he's a regular Johnny Cochran. He is, isn't he? Oh, my goodness gracious. What do these people think? They're like, they think that these policies are going to make the city better and stronger. But it's not. It won't. It hasn't. But here we are. 615-737-9986 is the number to call or text. 4552 texted in and he said, try that in a small town.
Try that in a small town.
Yeah.
See how far you make it down the road. Around here we take care
so funny.
of our own. You cross that line, it won't take long for you to find out. I recommend you don't. Try that in.
Lena texted in 5450. She said, wait, Did the residents not open their homes like Mayor Eric Adams called for? Shocker. They're calling for that in Massachusetts, too. They're being completely overrun. They said, you know what? Just open up your own house and welcome these illegal aliens in.
Goodness gracious. I had a caller just call in, Patrick. He asked, were those pamphlets written in Spanish as well so that the illegal aliens could read them as well?
That is so funny. Unfortunately, the only one I saw was in English. So maybe they need to...
Maybe there's a front side, back side?
Hopefully, but they wasted tax money on it. So I would assume that they probably failed at that too. Because, anytime they're wasting our money on things, or the people of New York's money on things, it's safe to assume that they're not going to do it correctly. Oh, geez. What do these people expect? 5284 texted in and said, didn't the Dems call us racist for saying illegals should not come to our cities? Oh, yes, they did. Hey, Mayor, if the illegals won't fit, you must admit, says 8559. I love the super text line. Thank you for joining me on the air. You can find me off air at Chris Hand on Air on Twitter and Instagram. Hit the follow button. I'll follow back. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We were talking about New York City and the mess that it's in. And it is an absolute mess. Mayor Eric Adams, he's saying that they're full. They can't accept any more illegal aliens. They've been paying $500 a night for one hotel with 1,300 rooms, completely filled with illegal aliens. $650,000 a night. Yikes. So now he's begging people not to come. And I'm curious as to how the city is running out of money. Oh, it's because they do things like this. New York City officials on Thursday agreed to a settlement with Black Lives Matter protesters who said the NYPD violated their rights during protests in 2020. You heard me right. Black Lives Matter protesters said the NYPD violated their rights in 2020 while they were tearing down the city for a crime that happened in a different city. The settlement is going to pay the protesters over $13 million. The protesters said the NYPD used excessive force, including pepper spray and other tactics to control protesters at 18 protests between May 28th and June 4th. It's a very large payout that the taxpayers are now going to be responsible for as a result of the extreme violence and police misconduct from the way the city policed the Black Lives Matter protests in the Summer of Love 2020, said attorney Gideon Oliver. Gideon says around 1,400 eligible protesters will be covered and will receive around $9,950 from the city once the settlement is approved by a judge. Weird. So, the city's running out of money. They're paying the protesters. And, they're being overrun with illegal aliens.
Try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road.
And meanwhile, they're lambasting Jason Aldean for saying don't do that in a small town. I've said it time and time again. Get your butt out of big cities. It's dangerous. It's chaotic. And they're wasting your tax dollars. It's insane. 615-737-9986. 3493 texted in, said, don't worry, Biden will bail out New York City at everyone's expense. So true. 0313 texted in, said, now wait a minute. Weren't these protesters also being paid by Soros too? Maybe. They're making a bundle of money by acting stupid. You're absolutely right. We're going to go to the phone lines at 615-737-9986. Bo, you're on Super Talk 99.7. What's going on, Bo?
Well, I was cruising the internet and I ran across where the head of the criminal division of the U.S. Justice Department is leaving. And that was announced 4 days ago.
Well, that's...
Sounds like a rat leaving a ship.
Yeah, the rats always get off the ship first. You're absolutely right. Thanks for the call, Bo. I really appreciate it. 2936 texted in, said, we are suing you for not letting us break the law. How dare you? Keith texted in, said, didn't those protesters violate the NYPD's right to a peaceful night? You're absolutely right. But again, you don't get punished for breaking the law anymore. You only get punished for thinking the wrong things. Oh. 6391 said, the Dems are probably okay with 500 per vote, but not 500 per night. So that's what it comes down to. These open border policies, they're trying to change and change red cities to blue, change red districts to blue. New York City is just being overrun because they're a sanctuary city. And they are being overrun. Mayor Eric Adams is begging people not to come. Black Lives Matter destroying the city and being paid to get away with it. 3315 texted in and said they could pay for 20 more nights of illegals staying at that hotel with the Black Lives Matter settlement money. 3455 said, oh, come on, Chris, it's just good trouble. Oh, 7159 said $19.5 million a month to pay for illegal aliens to house them in hotels. $19.5 million a month down the drain. It's insane. It's insane. 2785 texted in and said, my pastor, Alan Jackson, has said more than once, instead of raging at the darkness, turn up the light. These secular cities continue to vote for darkness, and the light gives them what they ask for. You're absolutely right. That's actually my pastor as well, Alan Jackson. He's a great guy. Super smart. Big fan. Big fan of World Outreach Church in Murfreesboro. But what are we going to do, my friends? Mayor Eric Adams begging migrants not to come, paying to have flyers printed. He's having flyers printed to be brought down to the border to hand out, to say to illegal aliens, sorry, guys, we're full. It's 10:31 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Thanks for hanging out with me. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. What's going on? It's Chris Hand. 10:35. Windy out there. Thanks for hanging out with me. 615-737-9986 is the number to call or text. Man, things are just crazy out here. But, you know, I will point out that there are good people, and people are fighting back. So, yesterday I told you about the Temecula School Board in California. They're fighting back and not allowing textbooks, social study textbooks, new ones, to be implemented because they promote Harvey Milk as a gay rights activist in these textbooks, and they leave out the part where, he had a relationship with a 16-year-old boy when he was in his 30s. Conveniently, they leave that part out, and obviously, parents were just upset about it. But the school district in Temecula was based, and they said, we're not taking those books. Don't worry about it. And everybody applauded. Then the governor got involved. The governor says, oh, every kid deserves a good education. What are you doing? Gavin Newsom. Thanks, Gavin. And they're going to send the social studies books anyway. They said they'll hand deliver them to kids' houses if they have to. Well, that school board meeting was intense, and the good guys won. But there's been another intense school board meeting in California, and this is just, I love to see this. I really love to see this because we always think everything's lost, everything's bad. California is going down the drain. New York is a crap hole, and those things may be true, but there are good people out there fighting the good fight. And there's another school board that's having a hostile school board meeting in California, this time in Chino Valley, California. Breitbart reports that a local school board ejected a California state superintendent of public instruction by the name of Tony Thurmond after he tried to intervene in a meeting about parental notification for gender transitions. Yes, you heard me right. They don't want to tell you if your kid is transitioning. Well, the board in Chino Valley voted 4-1 to approve a policy that requires the district to notify parents or guardians if a child wishes to change his or her gender. Critics of the policy say that requires to out transgender kids. So they don't think that you deserve to know if you're a parent, if your children are transitioning. And while this may be happening in California, I just want to point it out to you because if we fall asleep at the wheel as parents, it could be happening here before we know it. Be involved in your local school board. Because as you can see from this school board in California, by just being involved and speaking up, change can happen. The board voted 4-1 to approve the policy that requires the schools in the district to notify the parents if the child wishes to change his or her gender, despite what the critics say. But State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tony Thurmond, who was elected in 2018 with backing from the powerful state teachers union, was kicked out after giving a speech warning the school board that they were putting children at risk by notifying parents of their transitions. Really? You're putting children at risk by notifying parents of a drastic life change. That's something. That is insanity at its finest. Never mind the fact that transitioning a child will sterilize them or mutilate their gender or remove healthy organs. No. Putting kids at risk isn't notifying the parents that they want to transition. Putting kids at risk is letting them transition. 100%, full stop. The Orange County Register reported that this policy introduced in June requires school to notify parents in writing within 3 days after their child identifies as transgender, is involved in violence, or talks about suicide. Why would it be controversial to notify a parent if their child has decided they identify as transgender, is involved in violence, or talks about suicide? If it was just the latter two, there would be nothing wrong with that. But if a child wants to completely change their biology, it's controversial to tell the parents. Thank goodness for the parents in California standing up. Thank goodness that they're involved in the school board. So that way this didn't pass. Under the new policy, schools will notify parents if their child seeks to change their name or pronouns or asks for gender-based sports, bathrooms, or changing rooms that do not match their assigned gender at birth. Before his removal from the meeting, Thurmond told the board, the policy you consider tonight may not only fall outside of privacy laws, but may put our students at risk. Seriously. Thurmond then went on Twitter saying that the policy threatens students' safety and called the parents who just want to know if their kids are transitioning extremists. Let me ask you something. Would you want to know if your child was transitioning at school? Would you find it an extreme belief to want to know that? Well, Tony Thurmond of California thinks that you are an extremist for wanting to know if your child is transitioning. And this is what he said on Twitter. He said on Twitter, tonight I went to a school board meeting to stand up for LGBTQ plus students who invited me to join them as they spoke out against a radical new policy that threatens their safety. A radical new policy? No. This is just old school common sense, man. If something big is happening with your kid, the school needs to tell the parent because the parents make the decisions for the kids, not the school. So I reject even the basis that this is a radical new policy. No. This is how things have been done for hundreds of years. If something insane is happening with your kids at school, the school should be required to tell the parents. Tony Thurmond continues on Twitter. When done speaking, the board president verbally attacked me and instructed the police to remove me. I don't mind being thrown out of a board meeting by extremists. Again with the extremist words. I can take the heat. It's part of the job. What I can't accept is the mistreatment of vulnerable students whose privacy is being taken away. This guy is on one. First of all, calling parents that love and care about their kids and want to be involved in the decisions that they're making, calling them extremists, out of line, completely out of line. And saying he can't accept the mistreatment of vulnerable students. Well, what would you call letting a child transition at school without notifying the parents? I would classify that as a mistreatment of a vulnerable student. Thurmond, however, was not the only state official to intervene in the Riverside County community's decision. State Attorney General Rob Bonta wrote to the board to object to notifying parents when their children want to change their gender. So the state attorney general in California was pushing back against this, warning of potential infringements on students' privacy and educational opportunities. Parents at the meeting disagreed, saying that the state was infringing on their rights to guide their own children. And to that, I say kudos to the parents. There's a photo from the scene at this school board meeting of a man holding up a sign that says, "Parents' rights matter." Amen. Amen. A recent Rasmussen poll reported that 84% of California voters support laws requiring parents to be notified about gender transitions by children at school. Nevertheless, states' elected Democrats oppose that idea. The state elected officials oppose that idea, despite the fact that 84% of California's voters support those laws and want parents to be notified. And these are extremist policies. Are you kidding? Now, I had mentioned the Temecula School District and their books, the social studies books, where they're trying to add a portion of social studies for kids about gay rights activist Harvey Milk and parents pushing back against that because of Harvey Milk's relationship with a 16-year-old boy when he's in his 30s. Now, California Democrats are trying to push a bill forcing them to take the books, or they would fine local school districts that do not comply with their state curriculum mandates. And the framing is so important because they always act like they're doing this out of love and caring. Listen to Gavin Newsom.
Everybody, it's Gavin Newsom, father of 4 with 2 young elementary school kids, and I want to talk to the parents in Temecula School District. We've been paying close attention, as I know you have, particularly with school coming up on August 14th. You're worried, I'm worried, we're all worried about access to information, access to the latest social studies books that are being made available quite literally to hundreds of thousands of kids all throughout the state of California, but are being denied to the kids in the Temecula district. That social studies book is being censored by the local school board. I know that's created a lot of anxiety. The last thing we need is more anxiety, anything more stacking of stress. So I want you to know that we're moving forward. The state is moving forward in purchasing and procuring those social studies books. Your kids have the freedom to learn, and you have the freedom to access those books, the same books that hundreds of thousands of other kids throughout the state are accessing. So rest assured, we'll be sending those books down in very short order.
My
And
goodness.
let's do our best.
What a slime ball Gavin Newsom is. The way he frames it, your kids have the right to learn. And he leaves out the part that it's state-sponsored propaganda for the LGBTQ rainbow mafia. And he's now backing a bill moving through the state legislature that will probably pass because Californian Democrats are insane. That would fine local school districts that do not comply with that state curriculum. And in response to the Chino Valley meeting, the superintendent that was removed from the meeting because he doesn't want to have to notify parents when children are transitioning, tweeted that he backed the bill, threatening to fine districts that rejected state-mandated textbooks, even though that had nothing to do with the meeting that he was thrown out of. Again, I only tell you this to say this. This isn't happening in these school districts because parents are not asleep at the wheel. You need to be involved in the school district. Don't fall asleep because we live in Tennessee. As we've seen at Vanderbilt, this stuff is happening down the street. It's happening in our backyard. So it could be happening in our school districts. And it may be happening in our school districts. But it won't if parents are paying attention. We need more good parents at school board meetings, all of them, every single one of them. And we need them asking questions about what their kids are reading, what policies are being pushed, what's in their textbooks. We need parents going through these textbooks with a fine-tooth comb. Because, you know, it takes a village, right? So, like, working together is huge. We need to crowdsource and let other parents know what is going on. Because if they don't know what's going on, they're going to slip in the Rainbow Mafia propaganda. That's what these unions do. And the people that are writing the textbooks now are aligned with these woke values. So I implore you, if you have a child in a public school district, a state-sponsored school, mind you, do your due diligence. Find out what they're learning and get involved at the school board meetings. Find out who is representing you at those school board meetings. John texted in at 615-737-9986. He said, Chris, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Parents need to speak up. Absolutely. Dan texted in, we have to claw back and redraw the line in schools. No adult can speak to any minor about sex without the parents present. Ban sex ed. I'd say this. I'm not totally on banning sex ed, but I'm all for redefining it and getting it back to the way it used to be. You know, notifying the kids about the dangers, not, you know, the crazy, woke, rainbow mafia sex ed. But that's just me. As you go through that journey with your kids in your school district, stay vigilant. Don't fall asleep at the wheel, please. It's not even for me. It's not for you. It's for the kids. It's 10:50, 83 degrees on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity, like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, call us for a free 15-minute phone call, or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's Chris Hand. So switching gears, we've been talking about a lot of serious stuff, but I wanted to point out something that you should watch over the weekend. It's not so much news, but it is entertaining. Patrick Bet-David, you probably know who he is. Big financial guy, started an insurance and marketing company, and later created this valuetainment brand. He has a podcast out right now with Anthony Weiner. Yes, that Anthony Weiner, Huma Abedin's husband. And it's just insane, you guys. He calls him out on every Clinton thing he can find. Audio.
How is it that the reputation that follows them as people close to them die? Why is that a story that many people believe in? Why is that?
Are the Clintons in their 70s yet? You don't think I can make a list of other people who are 70-something years old and say this person died, that person died, this person died? Hold on.
How come they haven't done that with Bush? He's in the same age.
I have no freaking idea why they haven't.
How come they haven't done that with Trump?
Hold on a second. But so are you saying? So you agree with what I'm saying?
How come they haven't done that with Reagan?
So
how come they haven't done that with Kerry?
What point are you making about these men and women who you listed?
How is it so many people close to them died? How is it so many people close to them?
Everybody dies.
How is
are you
it so
suggesting? Okay.
I'm asking the question.
You're asking a bizarre question.
Exactly.
Did people die?
All right, so it's definitely not really news, but it's definitely entertaining. This podcast with Anthony Weiner and Patrick Bet-David. You got to check it out on YouTube over the weekend. I mean, they go on and on and on.
The American people cleaned her clock.
No, in the Benghazi hearing.
Yeah.
Focus.
Why do you think she's not a president?
Focus.
Why do you think she's not a president?
Hearing.
The American people cleaned her clock.
You bring up a clip and then you want to change it to 2000.
No,
let's talk about that clip for a second.
What she did to the Republicans. So going back to it, here's what you're doing right now, which is fantastic. You just influenced a lot of people.
Check it out on YouTube. Patrick Bet-David and Anthony Weiner. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
While a grand jury weighs evidence in the special counsel's investigation into former President Trump's alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election, a federal judge in Florida setting a trial date for charges in the case of his mishandling of classified material.
In a compromise ruling, the judge scheduled former President Trump's trial for May 20th, later than prosecutors wanted, but sooner than the indefinite delay until after the election that Trump had sought. Judge Aileen Cannon said the special counsel's proposed December date was too soon given the complexity of the case and the volume of evidence, including more than 1,500 classified documents, more than 1 million non-classified pages, and months of security camera footage. Trump has pleaded not guilty to more than 36 counts. The May date means he will first stand trial in the New York hush money case. Aaron Katursky, ABC News, New York.
As the heat wave continues to grip much of the country, two situations involving children trapped in cars. One ended in a rescue, the other in tragedy. Here's ABC's Victor Oquendo.
Record temperatures scorching the country from California to the southeast. In Jacksonville, Florida, a 10-month-old died after she was left in a car with temperatures in the mid-90s. In Texas, dramatic moments. A baby being rescued from a hot car. The child's father seen breaking the windshield, pulling the infant to safety.
Vice President Kamala Harris in Florida today. She'll be meeting with parents, educators, and civil rights leaders who are addressing the changes to Florida's school curriculum and also discuss gun violence and reforms and reproductive rights. Word today, Tony Bennett has died.
I left my...
The award-winning singer, known for his crooning from the classic American standards to collaborating on duets over the years with contemporary artists like Lady Gaga.
That's why the lady is a tramp.
Bennett released some 70 albums over his career. He was 2 weeks shy of his 97th birthday. You're listening to ABC News.
Why do you change your car's air filter? Because when it's clogged, it doesn't work. The same is true of your nose, the body's air filter. It's great at trapping allergens, dust, and viruses, but unless you clean it regularly, they can stay trapped, making you miserable. I'm Martin Hogue, inventor of Navage, the world's only nose cleaner with powered suction. Navage pulls saline in one nostril, around the back of the nose, and out the other nostril, helping to flush out allergens, mucus, and germs. Here's a testimonial from a verified purchaser and a big Navage fan. Quote, I've been suffering for 30 years with chronic sinus infections and allergies. I stumbled across Navage. The suction is amazing. It cleared my sinus cavities better than anything I've tried before. Unquote. Navage has over 120,000 reviews with a 4.6-star average written by people who use Navage to breathe better, snore less, and feel healthier. Wash your body's air filter with Navage at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, and Target.
.05 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, how are you? I'm Chris Hand. Thank you for joining me and, trying out my show. I appreciate you giving it a listen. It's currently 85 degrees in the beautiful city of Nashville. I wouldn't want to live any other place in the world. It's amazing here. I do want to talk to you about The Sound of Freedom. The movie, amazing. And Donald Trump screened the movie Wednesday night in Bedminster at his golf club. He actually sat next to Jim Caviezel, and the word was that he never moved the entire time. He was locked in. And here are his thoughts on the movie.
It was incredible. It was a really great movie. Very, frankly, depressing in many ways, but an amazing movie to see, and you have to see it. It'll tell you about borders. It'll tell you about the abuse of children is just incredible. And it had to do with a very important topic that we discuss all over. Children, women also. I mean, you take a look at what's happening at the border. You take a look at what's happening in some of these countries where children are literally being sold. And in big numbers, massive numbers of young people all over the world. They come from all over the world. They're being stolen. They're being kidnapped. It's a horrible thing. It's a great movie with tremendous people. Your lead actor, Jim, is what a job he's done. And the whole thing it was an amazing evening. But it's a hard movie. When that movie's over, you're very, very sad because of This is going on right now at levels that nobody's really ever seen before.
And nobody's made it easier to do in this country than the Biden administration with the policies that they have. I mean, human trafficking.
They have made it so easy
to do.
so
easy to do.
And and they couple that with the internet. You know, one of the reasons it's so big now, the internet, but the Biden administration's done absolutely nothing to protect these children.
Absolutely nothing to protect these children. So that was Donald Trump's thoughts on The Sound of Freedom. He thinks it's important for everyone to see the film. Everyone I talk to that's seen the film thinks everyone should see the film. I think everyone should see the film. And the left, they're absolutely losing their minds over The Sound of Freedom. I mean, seriously, listen to the framing from the media over the simple fact that Trump screened the movie at his golf club. It's insane, the headlines that we're seeing from the mainstream media. ABC's headline: Trump screens Sound of Freedom, seeking to rally evangelicals around fear of child trafficking. The film's star has spread QAnon-adjacent beliefs. The New York Times had a similar headline. Trump promotes Sound of Freedom, a conservative hit about child predators. Hosting a screening at his private club, the former president is the most prominent Republican to embrace a film lauded by both mainstream conservatives and far-right QAnon believers. The Guardian's headline: Trump hosts a screening of Sound of Freedom, a hit with QAnon devotees. Ex-president holds screening at golf club of child sex trafficking film with Steve Bannon, Kari Lake, and Jack Posobiec in attendance. Even state-sponsored NPR jumping in with the headlines to smear this film. QAnon supporters are promoting Sound of Freedom. Here's why. Not to be left out, Yahoo Entertainment jumped in with Sound of Freedom, what you need to know about the hit faith-based thriller fueling conspiracy theories. Okay. So every left-wing media outlet in the country is smearing the movie as some far-right QAnon conspiracy. It's the QAnon again. Well, how can we let QAnon keep getting away with this? I don't understand why they're doing this. I really don't get it. So are they honestly trying to pretend that child trafficking doesn't exist? That human trafficking, child sex trafficking is a myth? SavedInAmerica.org has some stats. Apparently, there are more than 365,000 missing children in the country each year, and 30% of those missing are being trafficked. That would be approximately 109,000 children. But the media ignores this. Maybe if we had a ticker on every news station counting this the way they counted COVID deaths, we could actually make some headway on saving these children. But no. That would be too much, right? So the media instead just discredits the entire issue. And every time something like this comes up to shine a light on an issue like this, like the movie Sound of Freedom is doing, it's a right-wing QAnon conspiracy. 615-737-9986 to chime in with your thoughts. 3556 texted in, said, if QAnon promotes protecting children, God bless them. Seriously. What the hell is QAnon? I mean, everybody smears this film. Listen to this clip from Jesse Waters.
These films are created out of moral panics. They're created out of bogus statistics. They're created out of fear. And with something like Sound of Freedom, it specifically is looking at QAnon concepts of these child trafficking rings that are run by the high-level elites.
For some reason, the entire media is smearing this movie as a dangerous conspiracy theory. The press is saying that the star, Jim Caviezel, is a QAnon guy. And Jim plays Tim Ballard, which is strange because just a few years ago, the same media was celebrating Tim Ballard's heroics. Watch.
Tim Ballard has one mission: to track down child traffickers. 4 months ago, Colombian authorities asked him to investigate a tip that children were being sold there as sex slaves.
Within a half hour, this individual walks up to me, starts asking me what I'm here for, what I want, and within minutes, he says, well, I've got kids as young as 11 years old.
Kids as young as 11 years old. It's disgusting. So the left would applaud Tim Ballard back then, but now he's a right-wing conspiracy theorist. One of them QAnon crazies. I actually had the pleasure of meeting Tim Ballard briefly, very briefly, while I was in West Palm Beach last weekend, along with the film's producer. And they're both great people. Super nice, down to earth. And while I didn't have a chance to interview him, he has been asked what he thinks about the film being called a QAnon conspiracy.
The film was made, produced, written like 6 years ago, way before anyone heard the name QAnon. I still don't even know what QAnon is. In the meantime, they're trying to connect it to some conspiracy when, in fact, like you said, this is a true story. These are real kids. I mean, these kids are my friends. They're young adults now, the ones that were rescued. They're going to come out soon and tell their story. It's going to be very awkward when the mainstream media comes after these kids next and accuses them of being part of some conspiracy when, in fact, they were rescued from a life of rape. It's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen in the media, perhaps.
It is absolutely bizarre what the media is doing. 615-737-9986 for your comments on the Super Text line and your phone calls. I want to hear what you think about the media smearing this film, and if you've seen it, what you think about it. So, according to Tim Ballard, what he says is that it was written long before QAnon. He doesn't know what the QAnon stuff is, and he's actually been out there saving children. The children that he has saved are now adults and are going to be coming forward in the future to share their stories. I look forward to hearing their story. I think the entire country needs to hear this story. And I think there's absolutely no reason that this should be happening in our country. The measure of a society is how it treats its weakest members. Gandhi once said that. And I ask you, how will we be judged if we all stand by and do nothing? Furthermore, why does the mainstream media and the left-wing politicians of the country deny that this is even a real thing and dismiss it and even smear it as a QAnon conspiracy? Why? I mean, they applauded this man for doing the work he's doing. He has receipts for the work that he is doing. There are people that owe him their lives, but he's a QAnon conspiracy theorist. So why are they doing this in the first place?
I think that the left and these media outlets, they don't want to have a discussion that this film is going to compel. A discussion about why 85,000 children showed up unaccompanied at the border and got released into the interior of a country that is the highest consuming country for child exploitation material on the planet. They don't want to talk about why these same publications are pushing an agenda to change the word pedophile to minor attracted persons in order to normalize sexual activity with children. I think that's what they're trying to avoid, and they know this film is going to shine a light on all of the things, all the atrocities happening to children, and so they have to discredit it by lying about it.
And I completely agree with Tim Ballard there. We've been witnessing this slow march towards the normalization of pedophilia in this country. And you can put your head in the sand, you can pretend it's not happening, or even worse, just jump right in head first and slander the movie The Sound of Freedom and Tim Ballard like the left is doing and the media keeps doing. And you might say, well, what can I do? You know, what can I do? I'm just, I just sell insurance. I'm just a mechanic. I'm just a postman. Like, what can I do? I mean, first I would say be vocal. Tell a friend. Go see the movie. And there's even a cool option where you can pay it forward, even if you've already seen it, and buy tickets for someone else at the film studio's website, angel.com. So do that, if nothing else. Go see it or pay it forward by purchasing tickets for someone else. But we can't just sit here and keep being silent about what's happening in the country. We can't just ignore it. And we can't just say it's a QAnon conspiracy theory, no matter how much the left wants us to. 615-737-9986. 3556 said, if QAnon promotes protecting children, God bless them. 5656 said, I'm curious to know if all of these big companies and big shots have secret ties to making money off of this, or are they just that evil? I'm not sure. I think that the silence speaks volumes. I don't understand why we can have a COVID death tracker on CNN and every mainstream media outlet there is. But like a real issue that's plaguing the country where kids are going missing, kids are being trafficked, women are being trafficked, we just ignore. And we call it a QAnon conspiracy theory. It's disgusting, really. It's disgusting. 1541 texted in and said, there's no reason that any of this should be political in the first place. Amen. He also says, check out the Jordan Peterson interview with Tim Ballard and Jim Caviezel. It's excellent. I'm a huge Jordan Peterson fan, and I'm a huge Tim Ballard and Jim Caviezel fan. I will check that interview out. 1577 texted in and said, we have a resident child sniffer in office and wondering how this is happening. I can't disagree with you. 1354 texted in and said, Jesus spoke specifically about protecting children and widows. Why would he do that? Oh, because harming them is the greatest of all evils. Amen. Amen. 3996 reminds us to go follow the money. I think that's important. 9058 texted in and said, I'm going to go watch it with my wife, and I hate going to the theater, but no way in hell should we let Barbie beat it. Absolutely not should Barbie beat it. And what a great juxtaposition, right? Like, Barbie is being applauded by Rotten Tomatoes at 89%. Sound of Freedom is being slandered as a QAnon conspiracy theory. Barbie is a feminazi propaganda film designed to indoctrinate your children. And Sound of Freedom is trying to wake you up to the realities of the evil that is happening to children. Which one are you going to go see this weekend? Seriously. 4209 texted in, said it's odd that the media seems that they may be supporting child trafficking. Sure sounds that way. 7652 texted in, said they don't throw religion at you in the movie. Also, it's a good movie that makes people more aware. Hey, I'm a fan of religion. I understand some people aren't, but the movie is the movie. It's standalone. It's based on a true story, and it's something that's actually happening in real time. 1077 texted in, said, don't tell me we're back to Pizzagate. I'm not here talking about conspiracy theories, 1077. I'm not here to get in the weeds with the QAnon stuff. The movie is about Tim Ballard's real experiences saving children in real life. And he wrote a movie about it before any of those conspiracy theories happened. Before any of them happened, he was out there doing this work. You can ignore it. You can call him a QAnon conspiracy theorist, but in my eyes, it says more about you than it does about him. 8119 said, if you have to see another movie, at least buy a ticket to this one as well. You can pay it forward, buy a ticket for someone else at angel.com. It's a movie that you must see, and I think everyone should, despite what the media is telling you. The time, my friends, is 11:21, 85 degrees out. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. 11:25 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, how are you? I'm Chris Hand. President Joe Biden, he's been having a tough time. He takes a lot of L's.
Did you just call him president?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Resident Biden. I didn't mean to do that.
Just keeping you on track.
Appreciate it,
My
Mason.
job.
Oh, that's my producer, Mason. He's always here to reel me back in when I get off track. So thank you, Mason. So
of course.
The resident-in-chief, Resident Joe Biden, he takes L's. He takes L's all over the place. The man can't talk. He falls asleep when he's meeting with foreign prime ministers, like we saw with the Israeli prime minister. And he often loses against the stairs.
And Joan Shingang, I'm going to pronounce it, Shanga Kawawa.
He can't talk. He can't walk. And I am grateful that every time he's fallen on the stairs, he's fallen up, because, if he fell the other way, it probably would be disastrous.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I don't want him to get hurt. And
no, nobody wants to see an older gentleman get hurt.
No, it's not fair.
No.
And his wife should, bring him home to the beach and just, sign off. I don't want Kamala Harris.
Florida.
I don't want Kamala Harris, but I if his wife loved him, she would have took him out of office years ago. And luckily, though, somebody around him cares about him, because now Joe Biden is going to be using the shorter steps to board Air Force One instead of the usual staircase that he often trips up while boarding the plane.
Took him long enough.
Yeah, Politico reported that yesterday in a 19-paragraph article. Politico, which frequently tries to protect the Bidens from political liabilities, such as its infamous reporting on the laptop from hell, permitted reporters to write an article on Thursday about Biden's deteriorating physical well-being. Yep.
Took him a long time to get the short steps.
Dude, thank goodness.
Man.
So, he can't even walk over carpet without tripping. But now, as Biden downplays age talk, subtle accommodations are being made. It's very subtle. That's what the headline read. From the dinners being declined to the way he boards Air Force One, and even the shoes he wears, Biden's routines are changing. Wouldn't that be a huge warning sign, red flag to Democrat voters that the man is not fit for office?
Just a little bit of a signal, for sure.
You would think so. This article highlighted his growing physical infirmities and his new use of the smaller steps at the back of the plane. Biden boarded Air Force One using the shorter set of retractable stairs that fold into the belly of the plane. The routine began a few months ago, the president increasingly avoiding the grander, more traditional doorway near the front of the aircraft on the main passenger level, higher above the tarmac. Last week, Biden used the small steps to board Air Force One for every flight on his European trip. To London, Helsinki, back to Washington. None of those arrivals or departures, all of which the public were able to witness by the traveling press pool, were marked by inclement weather. He used the large stairs to descend the plane upon arrival in those cities, but when his hosts arranged for more formal greeting ceremonies, he didn't use the steps to climb back aboard. And the overseas trips came on the heels of several recent domestic ones, where Biden used the small steps again when he visited Rocky Mount, North Carolina, Chicago, San Francisco, and Philadelphia. So he's taking the short steps.
Give me a break.
We're trying to, sir. That's why we're letting you use the small steps.
Mr. Wise Guy over here.
All right, I'm sorry. So Biden's advisors told Politicos the president's decisions to walk up the smaller steps was an intentional shift to make his travel easier and limit the possibility for missteps. Yeah. It's bad when you have to look out for the president walking.
Even just guiding him. The clips I've seen of him, all right, sir, walk this way, and he'll just keep going.
He's constantly lost.
Yeah.
Constantly lost, constantly falling over. The new routine looks to be another subtle accommodation for the president's age, reports Politico. And it's hiding in plain sight. Although the White House won't concede that interpretation. 3 weeks ago, when he traveled to New York, again using the lower stairs to board, Bloomberg's Justin Sink pressed press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre about it during her in-flight gaggle. Was Biden having mobility problems? Or was it to address, the couple of incidents falling on the stairs and getting up, and you guys just decided that this would be better for him? I can't believe that this is a real conversation that we're having. Joe Biden just keeps tripping up the stairs, and we have to let him use the small stairs. I wonder if they're going to get him the little chair stairmaster at a certain point. Maybe that would be easier for the president. It's embarrassing. But at least it's funny. We laugh to keep from crying. It's 11:31. My name is Chris Hand. Find me on Twitter and Instagram at Chris Hand on Air. The radio station, my friends, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's Chris Hand. This is the Chris Hand Show, 11:35, 85 degrees. So a little while ago, we were talking about how the media has been attacking the movie Sound of Freedom. And I'm joined by a very, very special guest, Victor Marx, who's founder of All Things Possible Ministries. He works with Turning Point Faith, and he's an all-around great guy. He's helped rescue victims of sex trafficking and human trafficking from ISIS. And he's on the line with us now. Victor, how are you?
Doing good, Chris. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm glad to be here with you.
Thanks for joining me. You know, I've been looking at your backstory, and I see, your rough childhood, how you dealt with abuse, physical and sexual, and how that kind of shaped your path. You became a veteran, and now you're doing this work out here to change lives. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, I would definitely say my childhood was a catalyst for never letting me forget, how many kids and children and youth suffer. In my case, and again, it's all relative. A kid can have an absent father or someone that speaks any words, and it can crush him. For me, it went beyond that to physical and sexual abuse, where I was tortured, both by water and electrical, and then I was at one point left for dead in a commercial cooler.
Jesus.
The biggest thing people say, like David J. Harris, a good friend, he had me on his podcast, and he goes, Victor, I forget that you were abused, because I just see this, Marine veteran, black belt, yada, yada. He goes, I forget that you. I said, well, that's one of the best compliments I think I can get, because I've learned to go from a survivor to a thriver.
Well, and it's amazing that you say that, because when I met you at the Young Women's Leadership Summit with Turning Point USA, I didn't know much of your backstory. And as a survivor or a victim of abuse, that would have never crossed my mind. Like, here's this, massive, strong guy. You have that big German Shepherd with you. I mean, it screams military veteran, man of faith, man of God. You're a husband and a father and a grandfather, and that's how I would see your identity. And yeah, I totally agree with that.
Well, and thank you for that, because really that's who I wanted to become, but I was absolutely insecure. A lot of emotional problems as a kid, not good in school, not athletic, and I had 123 visits to a trauma specialist in a 9-month period. I've been on Depakote, Depakine, Prozac, Zoloft, lithium, and I wrote a book to kind of let people know the full story, and then we did a documentary on my story that people are starting to watch more lately because of everything. Mm-hmm. And it's in 15 languages. They can go watch it at our website, victormarx.com, or on YouTube. And that's why I've decided to come out a little bit more about my story and be a voice for the voiceless and help people recover who've suffered trauma.
So how do you go from being a victim of that abuse to then going to fighting for people that are victims of that abuse? How did you make that transition?
Well, they call it a wounded warrior, right? Yeah, and people typically get on that path. They want to help other people who suffered, but always my encouragement to them is make sure that you do the hard work on yourself first, because it will catch you. And, I had a martial arts career outside of the Marine Corps, and I started walking with the Lord just before I got out. Some reconciliation stuff that happened with my real dad. My stepdad, who had abused me the most, went to prison. And it was just in God's timing. He brought me an incredible woman. We're celebrating 35 years this year.
Congrats.
And that's definitely, I think that's the most important decision I've made in my life, apart from salvation. And, not all marriages make it. We've been separated twice. But I tell people, godly people do make it, even through divorce. So, I found a great, finally, I mean, my first counselor my wife made me go to when we were married because I started unraveling, the woman was crying within 10 minutes of our opening session.
Really?
She was crying. I literally had to give her tissue. I was like, are you okay? And I said, let's go ahead and cut this short. So not all counselors are equal, and those are some people who are wounded warriors themselves, but they haven't done the hard work. So one thing led to another, and I never set out to rescue kids or recover kids or help thousands of kids and women with trauma-related issues from ISIS. But here I am, 16 pumps later into Iraq, and what's shocking is they were all in my 50s.
Wow.
That's a lot of work getting done, and I surrounded myself with great teams. Biggest thing was we had still do tons of prayer warriors, and the people support what we do because we know we get it done.
I'm on the phone with Victor Marks, a victim himself of abuse who has turned that into that pain into one of his biggest strengths. And you've rescued, what's the number? Was it 45,000 that I read?
So yeah, it can be misleading, but not on our part. We've helped over 45,000 women and children in Iraq or Syria who've been affected by ISIS. The number of recovery or rescues is nowhere near that, but we don't ever publicly give those numbers.
Got you. That makes sense.
For certain reasons.
Yeah. So what does it feel like when you save a woman or a child from these human trafficking operations? What does it look like on the ground going in and doing that?
Yeah, well, whether it's facilitating or whether it's coordinating or whether it's going in and getting a kid whose parents were just killed and there's fighting going on at the time, that's some of the stuff we were doing. It's step by step, where you're just going, God, we need to get through this checkpoint. Lord, we need to make it through this firefight. God, please let this armored vehicle protect us. And then you get someone and it's coming back. And then you're trying to make sure that, like, all the way, you just want the person, the kid or the woman, you check them for medical, you do psychological recovery. And then for us, it's always long-term. We people who've suffered the most, we help the most. And it's long-term for us. Because everybody thinks about, well, you must rappel down a rope from a helicopter with a cable on your knife and rescue. It's really not like that. There's not a lot of sexy to it. And I don't know. It's, you grab somebody, going after bad people is what's a must for the justice piece. Mm-hmm. Like in Southeast Asia, we hunted a guy for a year.
Really?
He had cut off a girl's hand, threw battery acid on her.
Jeez.
Thought she was dead. Our team got her. We did 3 surgeries, and then for a year, we hunted this guy with our cowboy teams, and it's very expensive. When you get into the justice part, it's time and expensive, but we never gave up. We got him. So it just varies from the whole. Wow, they're free. Like I remember one girl, the last one that was in our house recently in Iraq. With a group and a team and coordinated effort. She got free from ISIS in Syria because we do operations in Syria. Still, actually, we're active there right now. And then really more to counter message. But God opens doors where people go, we need help. So we get into our safe house in Iraq, cross the border, all this amazing bunch of people involved in this. She's sitting in front of me. She got a broke nose and her back was broke. Wow. And she's smiling. I got a picture I can send you, Chris. She's smiling, and I go, "Why are you smiling?" I just got asked, "Why are you smiling? You just come out of hell."
Yeah.
And she goes, "I'm free."
Amen. It gave me chills.
And I just thought, wow. Of course.
Wow.
And she's like, I'm free. And then she said, y'all are the ones that are helping me. No one else will help me. So, and of course we are medical, psychological. We're going to put her through school. Again, people need to understand there's a full gamut of recovering or helping people get out of sex trafficking or get free from, nefarious networks. But it's bad. It's worse than people think. And our emphasis right now, because there's not a war going on in Iraq, so we're developing task force there with law enforcement, the first one ever, to help them do counter sex trafficking. Right? It's that's how we leverage and become force multipliers. But our emphasis right now, and I want your listeners to know, we're hunting pedophiles and helping children here in the U.S. Of course, we do it overseas. We do it south of the border, all the way to Colombia. We do it in Southeast Asia. But right here in the U.S., we're working on a project that uses technology, the best guys in their field, from the number one ethical hacker, to forensic guys, to retired 30-year veterans of investigations, the DAs, to everybody. I formed a think tank because, look, out of millions of visual images, video or still of kids being nude or raped, millions that get transferred through the internet. I mean, every year, do you know less than 300 people were ever prosecuted last year?
Wow.
Less than 300. So part of my deal is helping your listeners to understand what's real. What is really real. There's a podcast. Oh, go ahead.
No, well, I was going to say, it seems like the media smears this as a, they always call this a QAnon conspiracy theory. What would you tell somebody that doesn't believe that this is real and this is happening in America today to kids?
Yeah, look in one kid's eyes who's been pulled out of it. Hold one kid or a girl that has been abused again and again and again for perversion or profit, and you realize there is no conspiracy. 1 out of 3 girls will be sexually assaulted before she's 18, and 1 out of 5 boys. It's an epidemic. And I can tell you, you name an industry, you name a profession, you name a segment of society, and there's pedophiles in there. All of them. Every, youth camps, higher education, preschool, law enforcement. This doesn't stop because it's the perversion of the heart. And my concern right now is making sure people get educated to what's real and what's not. And, my podcast is victormarks.com/show. People can watch it. I interviewed 4 girls who used to be trafficked in the sex industry, and I asked them 2 questions. I just said, what's the best way to get a girl who's being trafficked out of it? And here in the U.S., what they said?
What?
Make sure she has a job, skill sets. Somebody will help her learn the basic fundamentals of get a driver's license, clear police reports if they've been arrested. And then please help us with the trauma that we've experienced, but the root trauma of our childhood, because that's where it started.
Jeez.
And the worst thing I've ever heard a pimp say was, I want to thank the dads, stepdads, and uncles for making our job easier.
Wow.
So there are so many more kids that are being abused regularly in our country by people they know versus, just being trafficked. That's one segment. It's all child abuse. Second question I asked them is, how do we keep girls from being victims or boys? And they all agreed, a better home life. Parents that stay married. Teach them their identity. Protect them young so they won't become vulnerable to groomers. And, soon we'll have some courses online that people who want to help, want to understand, can go through and be educated by true professionals who work and live in this space and those who've come out of it.
Wow. I look forward to that. And Victor, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your story. I want to have you on again down the road. I think that this is a story that needs to be told. And, bless you for the work that you're doing, my man. And, anything you need in Nashville, we always got you covered.
Thank you. Let's keep the conversation going. I appreciate you.
Let's do it, man. I appreciate you, Victor. That's Victor Marx. You can find him at victormarx.com. He's on Instagram, on Twitter. Just search for Victor Marx. This is Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things that we see from time to time, well, way too often, is this. Let's say that you go to a financial advisor and they say, hey, you need to set up an investment portfolio, and what we need to do is we need to have some of your money in stocks or mutual funds or ETFs or something like that, and we need to have something fixed or guaranteed in your investment portfolio that'll protect you against the market downturns. And quite often what they're talking about, they may not use this word, but often what they're talking about is putting your money into some sort of an annuity, like an indexed annuity or something like that, or a fixed annuity. And what they're doing is they're saying, hey, let's put your money in both of these, which sounds really good. And you should. And typically in an investment portfolio, you do want to have fixed investments and stocks as well in the portfolio to protect against inflation. But here's what happens when you manage a portfolio. Let me use a really, really simple example. Let's say I have a portfolio and I got stocks in there. Then I have my fixed income, my bonds in the portfolio as well. And let's say I have half my money in each. When stocks really do well, what we want to do is they're going to be overweighted in my portfolio. I own too much of them because they've done well compared to bonds. It was supposed to be half and half, and now maybe it's 70% stocks and 30% bonds, let's say, or something like that. So I want to sell some of this and buy some of that to bring it back to 50-50 and back and forth throughout time. Well, the problem is when you're managing a portfolio and rebalancing in that way, bringing it back to the original portfolio mix of half and half in my example, I'm going to have to incur a trading cost or a commission or a back-end surrender with the annuity. It doesn't make any sense to use that product in this particular manner. Why do people do it? Well, the reason quite often is this. Commissions are very high with these products. And a lot of firms, they actually require their advisors to recommend a certain amount of annuities for every person that walks in the door. Now, typically annuities are used for a different purpose. They were actually designed for a totally different purpose. And that was distribution toward the end of life. When somebody looks like they're going to run out of money, they're annuitized. Now, let me tell you something. One study showed there was only like 5% of annuities are ever used in that fashion. Most often they're sold as an accumulation vehicle like this, and they were never really designed for that purpose. If you want to learn more, call us for a free 15-minute phone call or go to our website, paulwinkler.com. The number 615-851-1950 or paulwinkler.com. We don't do anything on commission, and we like to rail against these types of things and help investors do what is in their best interest. paulwinkler.com.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thanks again to Victor Marx for coming on the show. Man, what a story that guy has.
So impactful.
You know, I was going to ask him, he's friends with Tim Ballard. I was going to ask him about, you know, what he thought about the movie and what he thought about, you know, the online shills going after Tim Ballard and calling him, you know, a faker. And like, but once he started telling his story, it's like I forgot about everything. And I was just listening and like learning. It was unreal. Thank you to Victor Marx.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it definitely, I think, will leave a lot of our listeners thinking about what goes on in our world a little more today than just their normal, typical stuff they go through, I guess.
I know, it's like you can equate it to the Sound of Freedom movie, but it's like it's almost better to take the movie out of it and be like, this is just real life, man.
Absolutely. It's so impactful for sure.
For so many people, that movie is nothing, like, because they're going through hell right now. But there are people out there doing good work. Find Victor Marx online. Find out ways that you can help. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Mason has been my producer today. Thank you so much, Mason. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you find me off air at Chris Hand on air on Twitter and Instagram. It's Super Talk 99.7.